Yeah, hi. All right. Well, thank you. We're going to kick this webinar off. And let me just quickly introduce myself and who I represent, and then set the stage for the Q&A. So my name's Graham Trask. I'm a resident of Clinton, live at 68 Fiddler's Bridge Road. I am here representing SaveClintonOrg, which is a nonpartisan group of voters of the town of Clinton, really looking to inform town voters and constituents of issues that are impacting the town. Today's sole focus is on conference center and conference center zoning law, which seems to be the key issue, at least from my perspective, in this year's election. We are fortunate to have the Mike Whitten, the current town supervisor. We've got Sapna Mudgil Shaw, and then we've got Elliot Werner with us, all on the Democrat slate of candidates for the election, which is coming up right around the corner on November 4th. And just a reminder that early voting starts on October 25th, which is Saturday. I think it's helpful to frame things up. The current town board makeup, Mike Whitten is the current town supervisor. He's on the Democratic slate. Elliot is the current deputy supervisor, also on the Democratic Party. There is Charlie Dickus, who is a council person, also a Democrat. We have Marion Auspitz, who is a council person, also on the Democrat ticket. And then we've got Catherine Mostello, who is a council person who is a Republican. Again, the town supervisor seat is up for election. It's a 1-year term to align with federal election time period. And we have Michael Whitten up for re-election, and then we have Dean Michael as the Republican who is challenging him. We then have 2 councilperson seats up for election. These seats are for 3-year terms, again, to align with the federal election cycle. Elliot Werner and Catherine Mostello's seats are up for election. Both of them actually want to be re-elected. We have 5 candidates on the ballot for those 2 seats. We have Catherine Mostello, we have Elliot Werner, we have Sapna running on the Democratic ticket. We also have CJ Wyan on the Republican ticket, and then we have Hannah Black, who is, I understand, on the Team Clinton party. But she will be, all 5 of those will be on the ballot. We did speak with the Republicans on October 6th, and it is a great pleasure to have the Democrats here. And what I would like to do is to let each of you introduce yourself very quickly. Sapna, I'm going to start with you, if that's okay. And perhaps where are you from, how long you've been in the Hudson Valley, political experience, anything that you'd like to share with the crowd.
Thank you, Graham. I appreciate that, and I appreciate going first. Hi, everybody on the call. It's very nice to be here, and my name is Sapna Mudgil Shah. As Graham mentioned, I am running for town board this year in the town of Clinton on the Democratic ticket. I've been in Clinton for 5 years. I live on Browning Road, and I have a lot of experience in politics. I've worked for an assembly member. I've run campaigns. I've worked on national campaigns. Politics are very important to me. Democracy is something I believe in. I'm very excited for this opportunity to potentially represent you on town. So thank you.
Thank you. Elliot, you want to follow?
I've been involved in town government almost since the time we moved here, my wife and I, which is about 25 years ago, living on Willow Lane. I had 2 terms on the planning board and the zoning revision committee. I also did a stint with the Historical Society, and I'm finishing up my 2nd term at the moment on the town board, and work as deputy supervisor, work with Michael, who will speak next. So we've been involved citizens with the town for, well, give or take about 25 years. We live on Willow Lane.
Super, thank you, sir. Mike, over to you.
I first moved to Clinton when I was 9. That was 42 years ago. You can do the math. I spent 4 years on the town board, and then 4 years now as supervisor. And I've always been about responsible government in terms of our budgets and environmental protections and our community, because this is where I grew up. It's where my kids are being raised. My parents live here, my brother. It's important to me.
Thank you, sir. So what I was going to do is I have sent out some questions to the candidates. It's going to be very interactive, if that's okay. I'm going to switch up who I ask the initial questions to. There's a lot to unpack here. And so I hope you guys will bear with me, and I'll bear with you. But we're just trying to unpack it and so that everybody can understand. So, Mike, I'm going to start with you, if that's okay.
Yeah, but before questions, is it okay if we all have a statement that I can read?
Sure. You
All right.
want to read it now?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would first like to thank the attendees for taking the time to join this Zoom. We respect the passion and concern that our residents have for improving our lives here in Clinton. 8 very important questions have been asked, and the voters deserve to hear our responses. SaveClinton.org has published online and circulated publicly a candidate rating system for each of the 8 questions, supposedly based on our public comments and voting records. We want to make sure that today's attendees are aware that we were offered the opportunity to clarify our positions, which we submitted a 6-page detailed response over 2 weeks ago on October 6th. Our detailed responses have not been posted to SaveClinton.org, nor have our candidates' ratings been updated. Elliot, Sapna, and I request that SaveClinton.org publish our responses to the 8 questions in their entirety and update our candidate ratings accordingly. We would also like to note that Catherine Mostello and Dean Michael have a history of supporting the current zoning law on conference centers. When he was last on the town board, Dean worked in consultation with the town attorney to create the conference center legislation, quote unquote, loophole in question. Catherine has voted with our Democratic majority on the present town board in every town board vote on the 6 census matter. We respectfully request that Dean and Catherine's known record on our conference center law be fairly and accurately represented on SaveClinton.org. So for excuse me, for full transparency, we have taken the step of posting our October 6th response to all these questions at ClintonDems.org. In lieu of reading our response to each question out loud, we ask that you visit ClintonDems.org to review our documented responses at your own pace. And I would again like to thank everyone for joining this Zoom. And that is all we have to say. Thanks.
There you go. Well, there you have it. So that's the extent of apparently the Democrats' approach to this Q&A. It doesn't seem they want to go through the Q&A. I don't know why they wouldn't want to do that, because they ask us specifically to do this, but it seems that they have simply used it as a way to continue to put out their own rhetoric. And that is the reason why it was not posted to the SaveClinton.org website. And as you can see, they also took swipes at the Republicans. Nevertheless, I think it is informative to go through the questions that were going to be asked and to provide some flavor from the comprehensive plan as well as our own zoning documents, so that those on the call can be educated about what's going on. So the question that was going to be asked to Mike Whitten was, could you explain what a comprehensive plan is for the town of Clinton? And I'm going to show you the comprehensive plan for the town of Clinton. That's the comprehensive plan for the town of Clinton, which I hope you can see. So it has summary recommendations. You can find this on the town website. I'm going through, you can see who did this. The consultant was Green Plan Inc. I think of importance, I'm going to move this if I can, is this vision statement, which is what I had hoped Mike would point out. The vision statement: the town of Clinton desires to maintain its rural character, consisting of natural landscapes, native ecosystems, working farms, small hamlet scale development, and historic structures, while preserving its scenic quality, and to do so in a manner that continues to promote its small town atmosphere and quality of life. A comprehensive plan provides a framework for development 10 or more years into the future. Comprehensive plans typically last 10 to 20 years. Our comprehensive plan was last adopted in 2012. So we're about 13 years into it. One of the most important steps in developing the comprehensive plan is to articulate the community's vision. Planning succeeds when residents reach consensus. A vision statement is the formal expression of that community's consensus. The vision statement sets the overall policy direction of the comprehensive plan. One of the follow-on questions that I had is a comprehensive plan legally binding? And although the plan does not have a legal status of a zoning ordinance, which we'll talk about, It is a legal prerequisite to zoning authorized by Section 272A of the New York State Town Law. It states that all town land use regulations must be in accordance with a comprehensive plan adopted pursuant to this section. Comprehensive plan helps to ensure the land use controls are based on a factual understanding of the community's needs. It's only effective if the goals and recommendations are implemented in the town code and if the town code in turn is enforced. The plan includes a number of recommendations that stress the importance of enforcing town policies and regulations to realize the goals. So it's legally binding. The vision we've talked about. The comprehensive plan was approved in 2012. Comprehensive plans last 10 to 20 years. One of the questions that I had for the Democrats was, do they think that the current sentiment among current town residents deviates from the above? I don't think it does, but you guys need to be the judge of that. We then go on to how zoning relates to a comprehensive plan. And zoning is operationalized as a comprehensive plan. So zoning is legally binding. And if you go on the town code, town website, you'll see that there is our zoning law. And the zoning law enables organizations like the building department, the zoning administrator, Jeff Newman, our planning board, the zoning board of appeals, to do their job. And so the zoning law is how planning boards make their decisions. It's how the ZBOA make their decisions. It's how our zoning administrator enforces the laws in our fair town. So then it's important to understand what's in our zoning laws. And one of the questions I was going to ask was, please explain what Clinton's zoning law allows in respect to motels and hotels. And in which districts do hotels and motels are they allowed? By zoning law 250-58, hotels and motels are only allowed in our hamlets. Our hamlets, as you may know, are relatively speaking, the most commercially intensive districts. And I'll read, the hamlet districts reinforce the traditional land use pattern in Clinton by allowing more concentrated development in and around the existing hamlets. The idea is only hotels and motels would be allowed in these hamlets. And then I was going to ask, what other objective restrictions does the zoning law place on hotels and motels? Well, hotels and motels must have a 3-acre parcel to be allowed, and then you can only have 16 rooms. And then for each additional acre, you can have another 7 guest rooms. So what that means for our hamlet owners is that you can have a hotel and a motel in as small of a parcel as, you could have a 70-room hotel or motel in as small a parcel of land as 10 acres. Hotels and motels, again, are prohibited in all but the hamlet district. No hotels, no motels are allowed in the agriculture districts, which are the large districts called conservation agriculture residential, very low density agricultural residential, which is AR5, and then low density agricultural residential AR3. And I am going to share again, because I think it is instructive for you guys to see our specific, if I can find it, how to share again, our specific zoning documents, which go to exactly this point. So here are our districts, which I talked about. C, conservation, agricultural, residential, very low density agricultural, residential, low density agricultural, residential. These are all the big parcels in our town. And then you have the hamlets. And if you go down to the schedule of uses, which is here, which is our zoning 250 attachment, and you look at hotels, motels, you'll see the only area of all of the areas that hotels and motels are allowed in are H, which is hamlet, and only then by special permit. I'm going to keep the share up. Moving on to conference centers, because that's what really this issue is about. Our conference center law is law 250-45. When was the current conference center law passed? It was passed in 2021. If you remember, both Elliott and Mike Whitten were on the town board in 2021. So therefore, both Elliott and Mike Whitten passed this law in 2021. You'll also note that the town attorney at the time was Shane Egan. He is the current town attorney, and he wrote the law. So in 2021, the current town attorney, Shane Egan, wrote the law, proposed it, or brought it to the town council, and they passed it in 2021. I was going to ask them what a conference center is, because I'm still confused what a conference center is. But I can, and then I was going to ask, can a conference center have accommodations? It's a bit of a rhetorical question, because they can have accommodations. Can a conference center have restaurants? Again, a rhetorical question, because they can have restaurants. Can a conference center have commercial establishments such as shops or bars? They can, by the code. So, although they're called conference centers, they look very much like hotels and motels. And guess where conference centers can exist by code? They can't exist by code in the hamlets, but they can exist in our most rural districts. Our conservation agricultural residential district, which is our C district, our AR5 district, which is our very low density agricultural residential district, and then our low density agricultural residential AR3 district. So in effect, the conference center or Dude Ranch zoning law allows hotels and motels in our most low density districts. The next question I was going to ask the attendees was, how many conference centers are there currently in the town of Clinton? There's one, only one. And it was the former Secret Hotel. It is now owned by CNCY, which is also known as Six Senses. So there is one conference center, and it is on 240 acres owned by CNCY, which is an AR3, AR5 zoning. AR3 is low density agricultural residential. AR5 is very low density agricultural residential. I was also going to ask the Democrats, have any of the current town zoning employees ever been employed by the current or former operators of the Seoul Conference Center? And that's a bit of a rhetorical question, because Jeff Newman, our current zoning administrator, has worked for both, has worked through his career for the original owners of that land, the Khans, then the subsequent owners who did the secret farm, and then subsequently, believe it or not, CNCY. He finally recused himself when the conflict was brought to the attention of the public. But by that point, he had provided some approvals related to the current application. There really are no objective restrictions on the conference center law. The only objective restrictions on the conference center law is that you must have 25 acres and there must be road access, and you must get a special permit. Because a special permit, a conference center has already been approved for 45 people on this land, it really almost legislates that conference centers are in fact allowed in this area, at least as 45 people. The loopholes, which, by the way, they admit there are loopholes. The law says nothing, the conference center law says nothing about how many rooms, limits the number of rooms that a conference center might have. Clearly, it allows accommodations in these residential districts when our hotel and motel laws, zoning law, do not allow hotels and motels in these districts. Scenic Hudson, the major consulting group on such matters, opined that the conference center law would allow even bigger impact in the residential agricultural districts than even hotels, which are forbidden, would have on those districts. Again, the laws have no limits on rooms, no limits on total of guests, no limits on events or event size. They allow for bars, restaurants, retail, spa, and of course, hotel and motel accommodations. Best practice in zoning laws, again, these are all posited as questions, but I'm going to make them statements because it's fact, is to have objective measures in your zoning laws. That's what state law suggests. Objective measures make it easy and defendable for our planning boards, for our zoning boards to actually implement the law. Without objective measures, our planning boards, our zoning boards cannot do their job, and it creates legal risk because it's just all up to interpretation. If there are no objective limits, what does the planning board do? What do they say? What does the zoning board of appeals say? How do you enforce the laws? It's just all subjective. So it seems that our town board, which again is 4 Democrats, 1 Republican, it has kicked this problem to our planning board, knowing that our law is insufficient and that there are no objective measures by which our planning board can limit this application. As you guys may know, and one of the questions that I was going to ask our esteemed panel who left was, what have they done in order to address what appears to be a loophole in this conference center law? They have passed a moratorium in July 2025. However, that moratorium did not include any applications that were currently in process. I don't know why the town council specifically excluded conference center applications. That was a question for them. There is only one application in the pipeline right now for conference centers, and that is the CNCY application. I was going to ask the candidates what are vested rights. And when are vested rights triggered? Well, vested rights are legal rights that give developers the right to proceed with a development, but those are triggered only when they have final building permits and they have substantially started the building process. The current applicant is nowhere near having vested rights. There are no conference center applications that have vested rights in the town of Clinton. There is a conference center which is 45, approved as 45 people, which has vested rights. But to expand that to 250 people plus 100 employees, which is what the application is for, has no vested rights. These vested rights will only be achieved once there's a building permit and substantial building progress has occurred. I was also going to ask the Democrats from whom they've gotten the majority of their legal advice. As we know, the town attorney who came up with the conference center law back in 2021, Shane Egan, is the same town attorney that is advising the town board. I was going to ask the town board if they had gotten any other legal advice other than from Shane Egan, the town attorney, or from the applicants, the conference center applicants' own attorney. There is belief that the town has not gotten any additional advice from outside legal experts. They don't appear to have reached out to the county itself, who will provide free legal advice. It doesn't appear they've reached out to any third-party lawyers to provide legal advice on this situation. It also, I was going to ask them if they had received any ad hoc information from constituents who were actual experts and lawyers during the last 2 years. And it is factual that both Mike Whitten and Elliott have sat down with a local lawyer in May of 2024 to go through ways to address the conference center law and to understand that that law can be repealed in total. And any applicants that do not have vested rights, which includes the existing applicant, would have no legal ground to protest. They could protest. They could file a lawsuit, but it would be defeated because towns can change their zoning laws at any time. And until there are vested rights, no applicant has a case or a leg to stand on. I was going to ask the candidates, where do they actually stand in the current conference center law and whether it needs to be eliminated altogether? Remember, the current town board has been in power for 2 years. 4 of the Democrats on the town council have been in power for 2 years. Mike Whitten has been in power for 2 years. Elliott has been on town council for 8 years. Although Mike has been only town supervisor for 2, he has been on town council for 8. Also of interest, there was an informal town working group in October 2024 that was working to come up with a rewrite of the 2021 conference center law, which has been so problematic. So that group was an informal group. There was an attempt by Elliott to make it a formal group so as to formally address this conference center loophole law, and it was voted down by our town to not make it an officially constituted committee to address the conference center law. So it appears that our current town board does not want to address the problematic law. Otherwise, one would have thought that they would have addressed it by now. But I was going to ask them that question. So I am answering on how it appears to me. So I was going to ask them the question, why have you not eliminated the law already, given that the Democrats control town council and have controlled it for over 2 years, to include the town supervisor, Mike Whitten, and the deputy town supervisor, and 2 other council members, again, for 4 of the 5. It gets even more puzzling because in the last town meeting on October 14th, Elliot Werner said that he wanted the board to look into changing the conference center law. So here we are on October 14th. The election is on November 4th. And Elliot is saying that the town wants to look into changing the conference center law. However, there is no way that they can pass that law before the election. So it continues to beg the question, how much credibility do we feel that the current town board, of which there are 4 Democrats, credibly will change that law? If they haven't changed it to date, they've been in power. And I'm asking the question, I'm asking you, because I imagine many are Democrats, some are Republican. Can you trust the current town board? It is a procedural impossibility for the town board to pass any law before the election on November 4th. They might be able to pass the law prior to January, when the new town council will be seated, but we will already be faced with making the decision of who do you believe. So I do want to open it up to questions because you guys have listened to me. I do find it somewhat cowardly for the Democrats to basically use us as another opportunity for them to parrot their position. I do not necessarily respect that they would do that and then just leave, but it seems that's what they've done. I do want to reiterate, and this is nonpartisan, that the 3 Republican candidates who did subject themselves to questioning did firmly say that they would repeal the conference center law, and went even further to repeal the hotel and motel law. Now, I guess it's up to us to decide who to believe. But with that, I have gone through what I wanted to cover. I do want to note that, and what I had intended to cover with these candidates, and I'm sorry that I'm the one that's been answering these questions, but I do want to say that other towns do have very detailed and objective zoning laws, whether it's Hyde Park, Rhinebeck. It seems that our town council has not done that. It's a problematic law, the conference center law, and I personally think it should be repealed. I do want to open it up for questions. If I can find the questions, where are the questions? Q&A. Okay. Are you for or against the Six Senses complex being built in our town? This is a yes or no question. I'm not for conference centers on the rural agricultural land. No, I think I don't know if this was for me or the candidates, but I think that it is a loophole. It's being used as a loophole to effectively allow hotels and motels on land which is not where it wasn't contemplated to allow. Let's see, what were you going to challenge them with? I guess my questions. Uh, uh, will you post their responses to the questions on SaveClinton.org? SaveClinton.org has declined to post their responses to those questions. We've also declined to post the Republicans' response to those questions. SaveClinton.org is allowed to give its own view, and that's what it's done. Somebody's asked me, who do I recommend we vote for? I hope that I have answered that. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. I think you should vote for candidates that will repeal the conference center law. The conference center, the Republicans have said that they will vote to repeal it. It's down to us to whether we believe them or not. I don't know what the Democrats seem to have had 2 years to fix this. They don't seem to have done it. They say they're going to fix it now. I don't know if what they might do. From a SaveClinton.org perspective, we are firmly in the camp of voting to repeal the conference center law, and we will back candidates that do that. And at this point, that seems to be the Republicans who are saying that. I personally don't believe that town elections should be partisan. I think they should be issue-based. And if you're Democrats, I would hope you'll vote on the issues and hold your nose if it means voting for a Republican. I've covered all the questions that popped up. I'll wait a couple more minutes here. There was one other question about vested interests. I think you're talking about vested rights, which I went through and did explain. If anybody else wants to put a question in, oh, Dottie, sorry, someone asked Hannah Black's position on this. I do not know Hannah Black's position. I would be pleased to have a question and answer with Hannah Black to go through this with her. If she'll reach out to SaveClinton.org, we will organize something with her. And with that, we have been on for about 45 minutes. I'm going to hold out one more minute. No more questions. Thank you for joining. I'm sorry it did not pan out as we had hoped. We had hoped to have a vigorous and informative discussion with the Democratic candidates. It seems they don't want to have that discussion and instead want to hide behind their statement, which you can find on their website. And wishing everyone a very good evening. And please get out and vote. And we hope that you will vote for the candidates that want to repeal the conference center law. Thank you so much and good night.